Hey, everybody. Welcome to Game Audio Hour number 155. It's our weekly podcast. We discuss all things game audio, from creative ideas to the latest techniques, project experiences, audio secrets. Here's where you'll find your in-depth coverage and opinions related to game audio. And Chase snatches right into the seat there really quickly. Sorry, man. I started it when you weren't ready. My bad.
It's all good. I'm here.
And where is that place?
Yeah, where is here?
Oh, boy. Where the sun sets in the west, as you can kind of see.
Well, that looks very, very pretty.
Very it's beautiful right now. Yeah, it's a little out of my... Let's just say I'm blessed to be here. How are you guys doing?
You're not in an IKEA, are you?
I might be above IKEA. Just saying.
Good. Mike, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty well. Just been enjoying my memories of the fun time we all had yesterday at the second annual show barbecue.
Ooh, the GAH-BQ.
The GAH-BQ. That sounds very Bostonian.
Garbage.
Vince, how are you, man?
Oh, man. Not bad. I really enjoyed yesterday's GAH-BQ as well, although I really wish that my ratio of driving to barbecue was a bit lower than it ended up being. I ended up doing a whole lot of driving because Orange County is quite far away from Ventura County. Quite far away.
Unbelievable. I appreciate you coming. We had a couple of people that drove really quite a long way. How long did it take you to get home?
Yeah, just around 2 hours.
Still, even at that hour of the night, I figured traffic would be dead by then.
Yeah, it was actually pretty busy. Right before I hit the 101, went incredibly slowly, but at least things kept on moving. Oh well.
Well, thanks for coming. It was an awesome time.
It's really fun.
I was going to say, the thing that stands out to me is that video game. You've got to give me I know I asked you like 8 times. For the people who weren't here, Vince brought this box that you can take motherboards from arcade machines, plug them into a box, plug that box into your television, and you're playing arcade stuff on your TV. And I had a blast.
It was pretty fun. I always like showing that thing off. A lot of people don't realize that that's actually an option. You know, arcade boards are pretty affordable nowadays, especially for some of these things from the 80s and 90s that aren't in the purview of arcade operators. So, you know, me being the weird, crazy video game collector that I am, oh man, I love having those arcade boards, and it's just really fun to show people weird games that they might not have ever seen before.
Indeed. I mean, what games did we play?
Man, we played some weird stuff. Among the less weird things were a basketball game called Slam Dunk 2, which was made by Konami in the mid-90s. There was a very weird 3D MMA game called Bariki 1, where you have to move with the buttons and you do punches and kicks and other sort of fighting techniques with the directional stick. And then there was a really weird puzzle game called Taiken Tokai Dama, which I think you were really into that, Chase. I think you really seem to like that.
Yeah, it reminded me of Luminous Plus.
Oh, Luminous, yeah. Luminous is a fine puzzle game.
Was that the Match 3 game?
Yes.
Yeah, the Match 3 game, yeah. It's such a weird game. I think that the core mechanics there are really solid, but a lot of people, of course, the first thing they see are those really weird visuals for the characters. There's one dude that looks like a bodybuilder that wears a baby's bonnet or something.
Yeah.
And then there's one that looks like an alien. I think you said it was an alien fetus, I think, Mike. Something like that.
I could not figure out what it was supposed to be. It did look kind of fetal, but obviously it had adult awareness of some kind and a wide range of emotions. But yeah, it was really disturbing, like most of the character design in that game.
Was that the one with that blue sunfish that kept getting in front of it?
Inexplicably, I feel like that all the imagery was just a series of well-known tropes in an alien culture.
Yeah. It was weird, but it was fun. I mean, I didn't play it, but I'll tell you one thing I noticed. When Chase sits down to a game, it's game face Chase.
Yeah.
There was
like
no
that
delay.
every
Chase went from laughing to all of a sudden a controller in his hand. It's serious.
I don't even
Same for
realize.
Pong. Once you brought out the Pong, he was serious about that.
Man, I couldn't hold up my end of the Pong bargain either. I got beat first game, Vince. Thank you very much.
No, wait a minute. I think you switched it around. You definitely beat me the first game, and I beat you the second game.
Oh, is that what it was? Well, the second one's the one I keep remembering. Remember your losses. Don't remember your wins.
That sounds like a good adage somehow, somewhere.
Yeah. In a very cruel world somewhere.
So
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, no, please continue.
I was going to say, well, the music for all the games made sense except for that puzzle game. It was just there was so much. I think Mike explained it best. There's so much forward sound that the music itself, you could almost barely notice. And then when you did, it didn't understand what was going on there. And I thought that's really an interesting, obviously there's a lot of games that sound like that have almost a unnoticeable score to them because of all of the sound effects. That wears me down. That gets me tired if I have that much noise.
Well, that was an arcade game, right?
Yeah.
So the psychology of arcade games, I think, and how that impacts sound design and music is a little different from the home console experience.
Yeah.
You want to keep everyone in this heightened state of engagement. You want people to throw in, do they still take quarters, or just put in your credit card? Whatever it is, they want a lot of money to flow, so it has to feel like it's the Olympics all the time. So that's why you have that very omnipresent in your face. Every sound effect is an explosion. All the music is amped up to 10. It's a very bright, kind of punchy sound. And I think it accomplishes that psychological goal, and it accomplishes the practical goal of trying to rise up among the ambient noise in a typical arcade.
Yeah, they definitely want to catch your attention while you're being distracted by other games. Have you guys ever written any sound effects that specifically were for that, like some zinger or something that was totally just designed to bring a person to either like a new level, a way of introducing a new level? Because obviously you wouldn't have to, it's not like multiple people have to be attracted to your video game, but there might be reasons within the console and PC video gaming where you want to have some sort of big sound to attract something. Have you done a sound like that, and what was it used for?
I don't know if it's a specific sound, but when I was working on Skullgirls, it was trying to be a competitive fighting game, and it wasn't at the very beginning. It wasn't set out to be an arcade game, but the understanding was this thing is going to play on these smaller LCD displays that are going to be in a big convention environment, and everyone's going to be just row side by side people playing against each other, in that environment, it's not unlike the arcade where everyone's just sort of competing with each other. You've got this big elevated noise floor that you have to rise over if you want anything to stand out.
Gotcha.
Too bad Alex isn't here, because he did all the sound design for Ghost Attackers VR, which was a VR game that he worked on, which is now in VR Tokyo, or VR Park Tokyo. And I imagine he had to do a lot of those kind of impact, attention-grabbing sounds.
I haven't done any sound specifically for an arcade, but I do use the philosophy of distinguishing the sound from other games. So it's not necessarily about volume, it's just more of it having an identity, which I do know arcade machines were striving to have back, in the late 80s, early 90s and such like that. So I try to when I do projects, I kind of think of what were arcade sounds doing to distinguish themselves, and how can I apply that to the game projects that I'm on today, so that, say, if someone was playing in the living room or the bedroom, if you had walked by, you'd be able to identify what game that person was playing. Oh, that's Dead Space, or that's Skullgirls, or that's Marvel vs. SNK, so on and so forth.
Gotcha. Have you guys worked on any of the like? I'm trying to think of those kind of arcade classic kind of CDs that come out for Xbox. Maybe it's who's the big one that Midway? I think Midway had one where they'd have all the consoles that spun around on a carousel, and you'd select what you wanted to play. Did you guys work on anything like that?
Oh man, no, not for me.
I wonder if they used the original sounds or if they wrote new stuff for those.
Well, it's interesting because I just found out through a friend of mine. He gave me a link to a website that has all of some of the SNK games and the Neo Geo games like Metal Slug. And I know one of the re-releases, they actually redid some of the sounds for it instead of the ones that actually came out in the arcade. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I guess it just depends on who has the IP rights and then who's publishing it to make those kind of decisions.
Yeah, it makes sense. That makes sense. Well, anyway, at the barbecue, we had a blast playing a bunch of games, and we had a massive jam session, which was just, I turned on all the disco lights.
Yeah, you can watch it on Twitter.
That's right. Jason did a bunch of live stuff. It's fantastic. You can hear us warm up on Twitter. That's about all we did there.
I have the jam session.
Yeah.
Like tuning guitars and basses, and
There's
Vince
at least
patiently
one
waiting.
song on there.
I feel like I didn't do anything except warm up. You know,
No, well,
it's a totally different mindset. You know, writing music and composing music versus, oh wait, I'm playing with other people, and
Yeah.
that is a part of my brain that I haven't engaged in so long. Not that I was really all that good at it to begin with, but
no, you did great.
great.
I know some people
Honestly,
that are like classically trained, and they have difficulty playing just something that isn't written on paper.
see, that's me. You know, I'm the classically trained, you know, pianist. I'm the one that like will bust out, you know, Beethoven and Mozart and Liszt and all that stuff. I'm like, wait a minute, what do you want me to do? I mean, that's how I felt, honestly, that during that jam session. It was fun, but I really felt like that.
Oh, well, you did a great job. It was fantastic. We had all kinds of stuff going on.
Yep.
Those are tough if you don't like have a rhythm. We didn't have a rhythm section, so I tried to lay down rhythm on bass, but that's, you know, that's kind of tough. And then
Wait a minute, we did have a rhythm section during the first GAH-BQ, right?
who was it? Oh, yeah. No, wait a minute. I'm thinking of a different party. Who was it? The first GAH-BQ?
I thought you played drums at some point, didn't you, Kyle?
Yeah.
My kit might have been set up at that point.
Yeah, your kit was set up.
Yeah, shame we didn't get that cajon out because then I would have just been able to take over. But
Oh, yeah, I should have done that. But
we weren't thinking.
that makes a big deal. And also, you know what I'm most proud of is we didn't break into some 12-bar blues, which is what always happens. Very happy that didn't happen.
Oh, okay.
We ended
They're
up
happy. I'm happy.
we ended up in some 7/6 thing. That was pretty funny. And
Yeah.
I think Will made the comment, you know, put a bunch of composers in a room, you end up with a 7/6 jam session.
Yeah.
Intentionally in 7/6?
It was just a riff. It just ended up being in 7/6.
That's not streamed. That must have happened after. I
Yeah,
saw-
it was a little bit after that. Yeah, it was a little bit after you headed out, actually. Although the one that I remember was just the thing with yeah,
Was that
that's
a
still in my
7/6?
head. No, that was more straightforward. That was just 4/4. You know.
Oh, I hear it
or-
now.
Yeah, 8 bars, bam. Yeah,
Gotcha.
but it was cute. It was fun. I liked it.
Just yelling out chord changes randomly.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was fun. That was great. So we had tri-tip, we had chicken, we had people.
Bison.
Oh, that's right. We had bison tri-tip as well as beef tri-tip.
To be clear, we did not eat people.
No, we had people here, but we didn't consume people.
They weren't on the menu.
Yeah.
I've still got, oh my gosh. You know what? I got to say a shout out to Daniel Kim.
Yeah.
So he wasn't able to make it, but Daniel, thank you for these books and these personal notes that you put in them is amazing. Vince shows up seeing Daniel Kim, who was unfortunately not able to make it, and Daniel sends Vince with personalized notebooks and cider. It was just what a wonderful thing. Thank you. Totally unexpected, totally unnecessary. We're sorry we missed you, but we appreciate what you've done. That's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel.
Handwriting these little notes to us was really sweet, so we appreciate that.
Yeah. My wife actually really appreciated it too, because in the back of my notebook, there was a picture of my wife dressed up as Symmetra from Overwatch, inexplicably chasing me. And yeah, Val had got a real kick out of that. So thank you, Daniel, from the both of us.
Yeah, class act. Thank you so much, and I hope you feel better soon. Hey, let's say thank you to Isotope, and while we do that, we have kind of a secret to do, don't we?
Oh man, a secret?
We have a giveaway with a little extra, I think.
Ooh.
So Vince, you've already selected who the winner is, and I guess I should go on to explain that Isotope generously we gave away we set this contest up last week to give away Neutron 2, but Isotope contacted me and said add Ozone 8 to that. So it's going to be the 08 N2 bundle that we'll be giving away to the winner rather than just N2. Thank you, Isotope, for sponsoring the show and taking care of our viewers. That's an amazing thing.
That is really awesome.
So Vince, do you want to say who it is since you selected?
Oh, you mean you want me to say who it is because you don't know how to pronounce this name either?
Oh, I think I do actually. I just thought since
wait a minute, really?
The dice roll.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. I'm willing to embarrass myself. The winner
I can do it for you. I didn't mean
the
to put
08
down a
N2
bonus.
bundle is Twitter NileQuest. His name, I think, is pronounced Ian Giedroych. So Ian, or NileQuest. I like actually that Twitter name, NileQuest. Congratulations, because you have the 08 N2 bundle.
Woo. Congrats. We had a lot of entrants that time too. That was really cool.
Yeah, remember, listeners, that we do these giveaways approximately once a month, and there is no downside. There is absolutely no downside. All you have to do is listen to our show, get a little code word, set up a tweet in Twitter with a couple of tags that we tell you, and you're automatically entered. And that kind of work is enough of a pain in the ass to lower the numbers of entrants from the giant mob that you'd normally get from a sweepstakes. So if you enter, it's not like you've got a 1 in a million chance of winning. You know, the odds aren't too bad. So it is always worth your time to enter, unless you don't like free stuff, in which case,
exactly.
I don't. If that's the case, I don't understand you as a human being.
That's absolutely. And the only difficult part about entering is that you are up against John Kyleson 1. I'm kidding. We're not allowed to accept these gifts. We do not create false names and email addresses to compete with you. But hey, congratulations, 08 N2. I'll contact you versus Twitter. We'll get on a DM exchange personal information that I have to give to Isotope so that they can send you the gift. Congratulations.
I'm jealous.
And thank you, Isotope. What'd you say?
Very jealous. I mean, I was already jealous in anticipation of one of our viewers getting a little bit ahead of me with the upgrade to Neutron. But now also the Ozone 8 in the bundle.
Hey, here we go. NileQuest is in the chat. Thank you. I just tuned in live for this announcement. Well, good timing.
Yeah, it's probably 8 or 10 hours later where he is.
Yeah. It's night in Poland, says NileQuest. Ian. Well, congratulations, man. Have fun with this software. And thank you, Isotope. And in keeping with Neutron 2, I think Mr. Shapiro has spent some time with it.
I have. I've spent some preliminary time with it, and I thought I would give a little bit of a report back to anyone who is thinking of upgrading or jumping into Neutron 2. or if NileQuest wants to know exactly what he just got for free. But I've been playing with Neutron 2 superficially. I had Neutron 1. I did the upgrade because it was fairly inexpensive. So the super top-down view is Neutron is a couple of things. It's a channel strip suite. It's an AI module that tries to set the plugins in that channel strip suite. And then it's a couple of other associated tools. So the channel strip suite concept is basically an evolution of Alloy, if any of you ever used that. It's just the typical set of plugins you would want on an individual track in your mix. You've got compression, EQ, an exciter, I think a transient shaper, just the standard, the usual suspects. And they all live in this little, I guess I'll just call it instantiation place, just a plugin that hosts other plugins and has an interface. Much like Alloy used to do, and much like Ozone does as well. So you've got kind of an interface within an interface. And then tying all these things together is a little bit of AI magic that lets you play your track for a few seconds, does some kind of analysis, and suggests settings for all of these plugins. So it'll listen, it'll say, okay, that's a drum track. Let me throw on some compressors. Let me throw on some EQ. I hear a resonance here. Let's put a dynamic EQ to try to address that resonance. It tries to make an intelligent mix for you. And most of the reviews of Neutron 1 said it comes up with a reasonable starting point. It works better than you'd expect something like that to work. So Neutron 2 enhances the auto mixing aspect, and it adds a couple of new tools. Now, insofar you want to think of Neutron as a channel strip suite, it's a little bit clumsy, I find, because the interfaces of all these modules are meant to fit in the Neutron, the hosting area. So the interfaces aren't super ergonomic. The ratio on the compressor is a dial, and you have to get it exactly right. There isn't a couple of handy-dandy settings. The things you slide or turn with your finger or your mouse or trackpad are a little small and cramped. So I'm not super crazy about it as a plugin suite as such. But am I still there? Everyone is frozen.
No, you're still there.
Okay, cool.
We're good.
Still there.
There's a weird moment where everyone is frozen, and I'm like, did time stop? That would be creepy.
We're very still.
All right. I know you're transfixed by my description. All right, but moving on. The AI module has been improved and refined, so if you want to check that out, I think it's worth playing with. It can give you some quick and dirty, reasonable starting points for band-type tracks. It's not where you want to put your orchestral string line, because I don't think it has a lot of knowledge as to how to treat tracks like that, and those tend not to have a lot of processing anyway. But drums, bass, guitar, vocals especially, it can do some reasonable things with. All that aside, the stuff that's actually most interesting are some of the extra goodies that it comes with. And the two I'll talk about very briefly are the visual mixer and the other thing. And the other thing is called, I forget. But by the time I describe the visual mixer, I will have found the name of the other thing. Oh, the tonal balance control, right? So the visual mixer, this is an alternative mixing environment. It's a spatial layout of your instruments, maybe like via a mirror or something like that, where each track is represented by a little icon floating in 3D space. That's a lie, it's 2D space. So you move it left to right on the y-axis to control panning, spatial placement on left, right, and then you can move it up or down to adjust level. So there isn't a spatial simulation beyond stereo placement, but you can make something. You just literally drag it up, and that makes it a little louder, and you drag it down to attenuate the volume. So the idea is you're looking at a kind of visual representation of your mix, and you can use that as a different representation of the same thing. Maybe it's a little more intuitive to think of things being physically left or right of one another, and maybe you can take a glance at it and kind of know what's going on in your mix, as opposed to having to scroll through a bunch of tracks and look at individual pan knobs and construct a visual representation that way. So my take on this is it is neat but limited. It doesn't really work with the panning or levels in your DAW. So it has its own internal set of pannings and levels. So if you're moving something left or right, it's not going to actually change the placement in Logic or whatever you're using. So it's got its own little an enclosed world, its own representation of that. And likewise, level is not going to adjust the faders in your DAW. So that's one disadvantage. It's definitely its own sandbox. In order to let a track be part of the visual mix, you have to instantiate a little kind of a channel plugin that just says, take this track and send it to Neutron so it knows that it's there. Interface is sometimes useful and cool, and sometimes it's a little bit confusing. If you've got a lot of stuff pan dead center at a comparable level, you get a little bit of a traffic jam visually on the screen. And even though it lets you remove things from the visual display, it can still be a little bit confusing. And of course, it doesn't really know about automation in your DAW, so it's really best for mixes that are comparatively static. All that said, I do like the idea of it a lot. I really kind of like this visual representation of tracks and their comparative levels. And I'd kind of like this to evolve. I almost wonder if this is something that would be better handled by the creators of a given DAW, because they could integrate the settings with the actual settings in the DAW so that you don't have two sets of panning parameters. But there's definitely something to be said for this approach, and I'd like to see more of it, either in future incarnations of Neutron or perhaps elsewhere.
Yeah, I think it's a great start. It reminded me of Mir. Have you guys used Mir?
No.
Oh, wait, is that the
yeah.
MIR, that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't played around with it.
There's a little more depth to that, but you know, they've been doing it a while. And Native Instrument, or sorry, excuse me, Isotope is just getting started with this panning idea. I think it's very useful. And I have a book I remember early on in learning mixing. Well, I guess maybe I don't know when it was, but it was quite some time ago. The book came out called The Art of Mixing, and it had all these bubbles, and the size of the bubble was volume, and the bubbles were placed into this 3D kind of space. And I've always loved the idea of mixing that way.
Oh, that one.
Is it
I actually remember that. I played because they had this. The guys who wrote that also wrote a piece of software for mixing with that interface, which I actually kind of hated.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I actually visited them at the, well, not visited them. I talked a lot with them at the AES show back in 2006 up in San Francisco. And I thought, wow, this is actually pretty cool. I want to talk with these guys. And then after talking with them, I felt like, oh man, there's some really neat ideas. And then there's some ideas I just wasn't sure about. It was definitely interesting, but it also felt very weird to manipulate within that space with those mid-2000 tools that they had.
Mm-hmm. Imagine. I didn't see it. I didn't know that was a thing. But I love the book because it let me visualize mixes. It took what was in my head and just kind of said, here's a better way to do it.
I think there is something to be said for this kind of representation because it's so efficient. You can look at it and immediately get a sense of the panning and spatial relationships of your sounds, and you don't have to go and look at a bunch of different tracks. I mean, ideally, you're creating a mental representation when you hear the tracks, but it's nice to have that reinforced by icons on screen with particular spatial relationships. So I think it's a kind of a version 1.0 thing, but I think it's worth trying the demo of Neutron and just playing with it a little bit and seeing if you like it. It might be an interesting expansion to your workflow if you're a very visually oriented person.
Absolutely, I agree. And plus, you'll be in preparation for the day that Isotope releases their DAW.
Oh,
well,
man.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because I started wondering, like Isotope is moving more and more in the directions of creating this enclosed system. And what Neutron provides you, and I think Ozone 8, are these, as mentioned, these plugins that let you take any audio track and send it into the Ozone system so that it knows about it and it can do things with it. And it's almost like it's creating a virtual DAW on top of your DAW. And that you can do things in Isotope world. And from the standpoint of somebody making a suite of audio plugins, of course, that makes perfect sense. You want to encourage people to live in your world and to buy your products, which fortunately in the case of Isotope are excellent.
Yes.
But there's always a grind against the plugin manufacturers who want to lure you into their interface and their world, and the users who sometimes would rather have the DAW be the universe and have outside things channel their interfaces into the DOS somehow, so that you don't have to feel like you're learning new interfaces for different plugins, and everything feels accessible.
I think it'd be a fantastic DAW manufacturer, if you ask me. I mean, so much of their software I use anyway, and just be built in. That'd be amazing.
I have a question. How intensive is it on your RAM to be running that? Because I have like 16 gigs of RAM, and usually like two or three instances of at least a few of those isotope plugins. My computer is definitely like, you know, breathing a little heavy. It's not out of breath, but it's getting there. It's like, okay, what do you want to do? And we talk about like the DAW direction, and I'm thinking like, that actually might be better in case if it's going to be using the RAM a little bit more efficiently. So how is that running on your system?
I didn't have any perceptible slowdown, and Isotope says that the little channeling, I forget what it's called. I think it's called mix tap. And I almost wonder if that's a joking reference to mixtape, but the mix tap plugin they claim is very low overhead and shouldn't bog down your system at all.
Awesome. Cool.
The other thing that's kind of interesting in Neutron is actually included with both the Neutron and Ozone. So if you upgrade or get either of those packages, you'll get access to this. And that is called, this is the thing whose name I was trying to find, the tonal balance control. And what this is I think of it as like a visual supplement to a mix comparison tool like Magic AB. So there exist tools like Magic AB that let you quickly go back and forth between your mix and some reference tracks. So you can just listen and on a very broad global level say, oh, my mix is really kind of dark compared to that released track, and allows you to kind of get a big picture back and forth. And what tonal balance control is, it's kind of like a visual analog of that. It breaks down, you instantiate it on your mix bus, and it gives you a visual that's kind of like a 4-band multiband EQ. So it lets you see the overall energy and the lows, the low mids, what they call the high mids, and then the high ends. So you're breaking your spectrum into these 4 little chunks. And it shows you what's going on in your mix, and then it superimposes that against kind of an upper and lower boundary for what's typical in a given genre. So you tell it, I'm comparing it to a pop mix or kind of more of a hip hop thing or an orchestral thing. And it shows you the typical range for each band. You know, your lows should be between here and here. And I see your actual lows are here. Oh, that's kind of high. Oh, wow, it's getting really below standard. And it gives you just kind of a gross bird's eye view assessment of how the spectrum of your mix overall compares to these references. And you can also load in your own reference, and I guess it does its analytical magic, and it gives you the similar references to that. So it seems like it could be a cool way to just do a quick bird's eye view of your mix and see if there are any trouble spots in terms of overall spectral balance. You don't hear anything, it's strictly visual, as far as I can tell. So it doesn't replace something like Magic AB, but it seems like it could be a useful supplement.
Pretty cool, pretty cool.
Indeed, and I think it's very useful when you're trying to make references to, I mean, I do it all the time. I have Magic AB so I can reference tracks, but I don't have any kind of scientific instruments telling me exactly what's going on, and I really like what they're doing there with tonal balance.
Hey, Mike, with both tonal balance and the visual mixer, when you were trying it out, would it occupy a smaller window within your whole screen? Or I'm looking at the visual mixer, and I have to imagine that it wants to use your whole screen. Or am I mistaken in that thought?
It gives itself a healthy amount of screen real estate that I think, I would guess it's maybe half of the surface area of a typical laptop screen. I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember if it's resizable. It may be. I don't remember that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at this visual mixer and I'm thinking, wow, this seems really cool. I'm also looking at some of the customization that I can do in both Reaper and Sonar, because you're talking about this overlap, and this is how you mix with the visual mixer versus your typical tools of the fader and the pan pot and all that stuff in your DAW. And I'm actually really surprised. I've never really thought about this, and I'm just trying this right now. I'm customizing my track controls in Sonar and getting rid of my faders and all that stuff. And I'm thinking, oh, maybe I can minimize this and then have the visual mixer off to the side. And oh, wow, maybe my current DAWs are actually more potentially more complementary to this visual mixer than I originally thought, actually very accommodating of that stuff being offloaded to this different mixing system.
In the chat room, Adriano asked if the visual mixer has access to other things like compression parameters. And I believe the answer is no, but it may have, there may be one or two parameters that it actually can poke around in that would obviously be part of Neutron. I feel like there's like a saturation toggle that maybe it can tweak on and off, or that might be something else in the suite of plugins. They're kind of blurring together at this point, but it does not have full integration of that kind. I wouldn't be surprised if that is included in future iterations of this thing, but it's pretty rudimentary right now. And I also want to reiterate that it does not understand automation from the DAW, the host DAW, and I don't think you can record automation. You can't grab one of these icons in real time and start moving it around to change its level or spatial position in real time. So again, I think it's best for relatively static mixes. And again, you have to kind of commit to it because it's going to represent your panning and your levels in a way that is extrinsic to your DAW. So you don't want to have panning and level information both in the mixer and then somewhere else, or you might not want to do that. That might end up being a little cumbersome. But it's cool enough that you should just get the demo and try it because it really is a well done thing.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for looking into it.
Yep.
Also, that pricing, it's really not bad right now. You know, if you don't log into Isotope, you'll see those big retail prices. But I'm actually going in and seeing that they've got promotional pricing for me, and I imagine other users up until October 31st. So for me, updating and having both 08 and N2, that bundle, would only be about $200, which is really good. Really good pricing there.
Heck yeah. It's October 31st. That's what I'm seeing too. Well, you know,
all right.
Now we should touch on our next subject. There's a terrible segue by me. But I'm not known for them. So Vince brought this one up. It's about, I think Daniel Kim asked a question about being new and like what to expect at GSC.
Yeah, Game SoundCon. Game SoundCon is happening a little less than a month from now. It's going to happen at the Millennium Biltmore Hotel in Los Angeles, November 7th and 8th. And Dan Kim, among others, were asking what to expect there. And wow, I mean, that's a really good question because, you know, there are all these video game conferences and we hear about things like E3 and Game Developers Conference. And obviously, or maybe not so obviously, those two have a very different feel, very different people actually attend both of them. Okay, Game SoundCon, that's probably more like Game Developers Conference. Well, it's actually quite different yet again. I think one of the nice things about Game SoundCon when I would go there is that everything was really very focused. You had all of these panels and sessions, and the topics were really quite specific. I'm looking through the session schedule for Game SoundCon, and it's things like music production with VR delivery, you know, sound anti-repetition strategies in Hitman, why session 1, why session 2, why session 3. Everything is really specific. And I actually really liked that about Game SoundCon, not just because of the material that was presented in all of these sessions, but because it made it very easy to actually talk with everyone else that was there at Game SoundCon. Unlike a sprawling conference like Game Developers Conference, at Game SoundCon you have a couple of rooms everyone is a sound professional, but also when they go to any of these sessions, any of those panels, you know pretty much exactly what they're interested in. Oh, okay, cool. You just went to this session on creating immersive soundscapes and 3D audio on the PlayStation 4. That's cool. That's immediately an icebreaker right there. Hey, what did you think of this session? You know, this is what I'm thinking about doing with the knowledge that I just got from this session. It's a lot easier to do that with that smaller population of 100% game audio and music composer professionals compared to the sprawling game developers conference. And I really like that about Game SoundCon. It was just, I always found it really quite easy to be able to have fun and talk shop and break the ice with all these other audio guys. What do you guys think?
I think it's very focused, and it's a place where you can meet your heroes as well as make good friends in the community. I think that it is a great source to get started to understand what really all is involved in terms of what goes into creating game audio for all mediums, whether it be platforms such as consoles or mobile, or for VR, as they just started the VR track last year, which was extremely informative, and now a new research track, which was very, very intense and informative as well. I think that it is a very fun place to just let loose your nerd side of what you really enjoy about being in the industry. That's what the feeling that I get, and to see friends and to make new friends and to see, I kind of relate it to high schools. If you see the new freshmen coming in, and then you see the seniors, and they're all there, and they're huddled together, but you can kind of mix and mingle in between and go between different groups, and everyone is welcoming, and that's what's super, super great about it. And like Vince was saying, it's like they have different sessions that are separated based off of experience and whatnot. But there's also, I think there's something there for everyone, no matter where you are in your career. And that's what I take away from it every year, is like, wow, I don't fit into this session this year, but I did find at least one thing that I didn't do last year that I could do this year, and I learned something, and then I move forward with that and probably take those notes and still reference most of the notes I took 4 years ago to this day. In fact, I was so thankful that I took notes last year because it saved me on a job that I had this summer. And before, like when I had a Y session I took 2 years ago, then that saved me from with a job that I had 2 years ago. So as you take notes and you learn, you build your community and your network, you can get a lot out of Game SoundCon, and hence that's why they gave me this T-shirt.
Nice. Well, I didn't even notice that was there. It was blocked by your tagline.
Ah,
here we go.
Chase SoundCon.
Nice.
Chase, are you shilling for them? Did they pay you something? That's
what's going on?
No. I ironically enough, somehow.
Are you getting free stuff on the side while we all have to make up fake IDs to win isotope things?
I was there very, very early before the coordinator was there, and I asked very nicely. I said, "Hey, I might be on a show in the near future. I don't know. God might be listening." And poof, he talked to Kyle, and I don't know what happened. And Mike and Vince,
boom,
like, yay! And they were like, "Oh, okay." No, really, I don't remember how I got it.
Do they have the Game SoundCon? Do they have like I don't know. Well, hold on. I mean, we're all open here. Basically, what I'm getting at is, what is the pricing? You can go to the website and find out. So I figure we should tell people here. And is there student pricing? Is what I'm getting at.
Straight up off of that, there is student pricing.
All right, cool.
Brian Schmidt and get your student pricing, because it can get a little expensive. But that student pricing is paramount, and do take advantage of that, especially because it will save you some ducats. Absolutely.
Ducats. Buckets of ducats.
Ducats. D-U-C-K-E-T-S.
I like my joke, buckets of ducats. I'm sticking with it.
There's only one other rhyme, and we shouldn't use it. So one thing that's One thing that's cool about Game Sound Con is that it's a little more mellow and relaxed than the audio track at GDC. And I have kind of an armchair psychology theory about why that is. And it goes like this. Because this is just audio people, there are no producers to impress. There are no people from other corners, no big decision makers from game companies, or maybe there's a few, but it's not really what the focused audience is. Whereas at GDC, if you're giving an audio lecture, you never know who's going to be in the audience. So what I find is that when audio guys are giving these lectures at GDC, there's sometimes a little more of a peacocking effect where they're kind of selling their services and they're—
What'd you call me?
Totally derailed me. Anyway, GDC, there's a little more self-salesmanship, I find, in the talks. That can be a little grating. Whereas at Game Sound Con, it's very down to earth. It's very much, hey guys, here are some tricks and tips that I recommend. There's more of a feeling of peership with the speakers. And it's a little more relaxed and fun. So for that reason, I do recommend it to anyone who can make it.
And for the uninitiated, is how many days?
2 days.
Do people do hotels? Is there after hours kind of events?
Yes, there is a mixer
kind of.
on the first day. There is a mixer.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the things that you would expect from GDC. Maybe a condensed GDC might be a good description.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, yeah, there is all that other stuff around GDC.
What it really
you
is
go
like
into, you go into San Francisco, and you can't avoid all the different events that are happening at nearby hotels or parties by some company. There's all sorts of companies that are trying to sell their products. You know, you have the whole expo floor that's in another building. You know, Game Sound Con is really quite intimate. Yeah, I mean, yes, their website is like, oh yeah, that's cool, but really, it's a couple rooms filled with game audio pros. It's actually really cool that, you know, you go through the whole thing. After a day, you might have seen every single person that will go there for the entire conference, and that's kind of
like
nice.
Me and you pay for a ticket, and then you only go for the after-hour stuff.
Oh.
That's what I did like 2 years ago. But I always say that GDC is after GDC. I mean, GDC is fun. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of information there, but after GDC closes for that night, that's super GDC. I made a mistake. I need to go to Game Sound Con and actually just be in the room.
The keynotes are really good too, I might add. Mostly they'll choose someone to speak either— usually it's at the end of the conference, mostly so the second day, and the keynote speakers will give the insight of a most recent experience that they've had in their career, or a message that they're trying to let the community know about. And I feel like those are really, really enlightening, especially. So the keynotes, if not anything, or another reason to go. I kind of see it as like a $300 discount to the game audio track at GDC. So it's, give or take, since it's like $700, and this Game Sound Con is around $400. So yeah, it's a good big discount focused on just that, because I remember the first time I went, my brain hurt. It was like being at a job. I was like, okay, I'm old, I need a leave, and I learned a lot, and I'm going home.
And people travel from all over, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Seattle and other parts of the country, and
that's wonderful.
Outside the country.
If you're in LA, it's kind of a no-brainer, because if you live around here, you get rid of the cost of accommodations and some of the travel costs, and it's even more of a value that way.
Yeah. And you can bump with people too. Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe.
I'd recommend driving home if you're in LA. I'd pay for a hotel.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, who's going to GDC as well? Put your hands up. It's official.
Well, I need to register for that.
So we gotta take a screenshot of Kyle putting his hand up on that one.
Are you going back, Kyle? Are you finally making your grand General MacArthur-like return to GDC after several years of absenteeism?
Only 2 years. I started going like every other year, And I realized that I really kind of want to go every year. So to make up for that, I skipped 2 years. In my mind, that's logical. But yes, I'm going. And we should carpool.
Hey, sold. And we can do another show at GDC because our first and thus far only show was a lot of fun and very successful.
That was a super fun time. Absolutely. Yes. Chat rooms are going to GDC. Matt Miller, who refused to come to our barbecue, I don't know why.
He's not in the country.
That's no excuse. And then the Jeff McMillan is going. We've got GSC, we got GDC people going. That's wonderful. And you know, guys, since we're on the advice track of game audio as it relates to conventions, GSC obviously is just an audio track, but at GDC you have a lot of selections. For the budgetary, would you say it's important to get into the audio track and to save money and go do that? Or do you think the Expo Pass will do them well? That's for people being very conscious of the expense. Maybe they went to GSC and they bought that ticket, and now they're like, do I buy the audio pass ticket or do I just do the expo? What do you guys advise?
I was told that you should always do the audio track once. It doesn't say when. It doesn't say what time of the year, what time of your career you're in. But I was told to always do it once. It is very expensive. And from there, I think people can make their own justifications of doing it again or not. I did do it once, and then I did the Indie Game Pass, and then I did the Expo Forward. And I kind of have fun doing a lot more Expo things and then going to all the audio events afterwards. But you do miss out on good talks from the audio pass, and that is the catch-22, is because those talks are very well selected, and they give insight on techniques, just as we give insight on techniques on the show. And on bigger, on mid-level games, AA and AAA game titles, indie development titles, and so on and so forth from different speakers around the world. But I think my advice is you try it once and see for yourself what you think going forward.
I really like having a pass to get into those sessions. I was actually, my initial thought was, wow, it's kind of awesome how lately Game Developers Conference has been putting up all the video recordings of their various sessions on YouTube. And it's great. And hey, you can check out this thing on No Man's Sky, or this thing on Borderlands, or this thing on whatever. And of course, it's not just audio, it's all sorts of sessions. And I was actually thinking, man, that video stuff is really great. But I was also thinking back, or rather, I just realized so many of the best sessions that I had been to, all the good material was actually not in the recorded part. And here's an example. I was actually in this one session that was talking about sound design and sound design tools over at Square Enix. And quite honestly, if you were there just for that allocated hour of time, you would have come away thinking that was one of the worst sessions ever, because it was a very bad session. The translation was very bad. How they handled that was really quite poor. And the actual material that they presented was just not substantial. But right at the very end, there was a question that was asked. I can't even remember what the question was, but it prompted the moderator and the sound designers from Squeenix, as well as a pretty decently sized group of people, to go into the after session breakout room. And it ended up being a really fascinating conversation for a good 30, 40 minutes about sound design process and sound team structure at Square Enix, as well as elsewhere at other larger Japanese companies. And it was wonderful. It was great So I guess really my point here is that it's really cool how so much Game Developer Conference content has been made available for free. but just those session videos, that's not the entirety of GDC. And having that full pass there and being able to talk to some of those people directly and really quite easily is such a nice thing. Really is.
Do you guys think that now, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think Megan Scavio isn't the director of GDC anymore, right? Didn't she move on?
Oh, yeah, that's right. She did something. Yeah, I remember she announced something a few months ago, and I don't remember what exactly it is now.
Is it DICE maybe she went to? I don't know. But did they change anything? They announce any like pricing structure differences or I don't know, any differences that you guys noticed, or has it stayed pretty much the same?
Dumb question, are they selling tickets already? Because I didn't notice.
Yeah, they are. I just looked today. I just had a friend with a
Did this just happen? Because it's weird for me not to have my inbox completely stuffed with marketing emails from GDC. So I'm a little surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, typically you get the GDC alumni email, right?
Yeah, it's strange. Maybe my spam filter got it. I don't know. But I'll put in a contrasting opinion. I usually get the full conference pass, which is not the everything and the keys to the city pass. It's kind of one level below that, but it lets you go into talks on any track. And I find myself intermixing the audio track with some talks and events from other aspects of focus from the game world. And I find it really educational to see what issues the producers and developers are dealing with and the writers. And occasionally you'll find a real gem that's might be about game design. Margaret Robinson was doing these amazing talks about the philosophy of game design, focusing on a couple of very oddball games that she was working on. And I don't think you could get those unless you had an all-conference pass or whatever track that happened to be on. But you can get a surprisingly rich experience if you step outside of the audio shell and see what's going on in the industry.
Yeah, I agree with that. I really agree with that. But it is, again, that price performance ratio, because once you step away from doing one of those single track passes, the price does go up a pretty significant amount. But barring that, I actually totally agree with that sentiment. Just knowing what is going on, what the other sides are really thinking about at that point in time in the whole game development world is really valuable.
So here's a couple of tips that I might have that are helpful is book your hotel early, because you can always cancel it. You just, put in a credit card and cancel it a week before if you want. If they check the penalties and make sure what the cancellation date is. That's a big one, because you're going to get booked right out of a hotel that's anywhere near the place if you don't book early. Also, get yourself a gig that's going to pay for GDC. I've done that most years, especially if I want to get like a big pass. I go, all right, here's how much I'm going to charge you for this game. And I'm not going below that because GDC is getting every dime of it. So do that while you got time. That's another piece of advice. And then make sure that you attend the expo, because that's when they start handing out the passes to all the private parties like Microsoft and stuff. And respectfully go up and look at what they're talking about on the expo floor. I've seen some people just walk up and ask for a pass without getting a demo of whatever it is that the particular company is showing off, and that's important. They've put a lot of hard work into it and a lot of effort, and the more interest you show and the kinder you are about the things they're doing, if getting a pass to the after hours party is your only intention, you probably stand a better chance if you do that. Also join the Facebook. There's usually like a GDC 2008 or 2016, 2017, 2015. It's like a GDC parties or something like that. I recommend joining that Facebook group. There's a new one every year, because that's going to be a bunch of people talking about where the after hours events are, and honestly, I find those extremely valuable. And then I think that GDC Vault price went down, didn't it, for stuff that you missed? So if you do an expo but you want to see talks, there's also GDC Vault afterwards. And I think last year they kind of I think it was less expensive last year to be part of the GDC Vault, wasn't it?
I'm actually looking at the current price right now on the Vault. It says subscribe for a year. It's currently costs $550, which that's a pretty substantial amount of money, but
yeah,
I think it's about half of what it used to be.
Yeah.
It feels cheaper to me. It feels less expensive, I should say. It's certainly not cheap. The content is amazing. And it's like getting the Mega Pass. It just, you consume it at your time, at your pace.
But if I may add, the free content for the GDC Vault, which I discovered this year after GDC, is substantial. I mean, it goes all the way back, and I'm scrolling down still as I go. This has talks from GDC Austin, which used to exist, China, all of the other parts that GDC exists in the world, all the way down to 1996. Granted, there's only 2 to 4 talks per one, but I mean, there's so much to learn and so many things to gain from just going into that. And maybe I think that's like a good insight to the scene. But if you want to go ahead and fork over the 550, like, look, they've got some VRDC talks. I mean, that's gold right there for free. GDC Europe 2016. The VRDC talk, the VRDC pass itself was more expensive than the All Access pass, if I remember correctly. And that was the new track that they introduced. So, I mean, take advantage of that right there. That's going to be amazing.
Absolutely.
To dig into.
Yeah, join. In addition to I wanted to bring up something in the chat room, is that Jeff McMillan said that there's an all audio party for Game Audio Denizens, which is a Facebook group. Join all of the Facebook groups that you can out there, and then watch the traffic. What I've done is I joined them all, and then I see what ones go dormant, and I drop those, because you don't know. Sometimes I'm searching for game audio on Facebook or what used to be Yahoo groups or whatever, and I would just join them and then see how much action there was in there, because some of them would be dead. But Game Audio Denizens is not the case. Join all that you can. Stick with that one. And don't they also do the breakfast? Isn't it Game Audio Denizens that does the breakfast every GDC?
Yeah, every morning.
Yeah.
They put the Denny's in Denizen.
That's right.
Ow.
I think Mike and I went to that a couple years ago. Didn't we, Mike?
We might have, and there was another one we went to as well, but I forgot the name of that group.
Yeah, there's Thirsty Bear. Damien also, oh my gosh, man. My memory's getting so bad. Damien's partner for the Game Audio podcast out of Amsterdam.
Not Matthew? No.
Anyway.
Man, I'm just
awesome guy. I'm sorry I forgot your name. Just a momentary lapse. Anyway, they host at Spyglass Coffee. They usually host a live podcast as well, which is really fun to go to. A lot of great people there.
Super early.
Yes, Anton. Thank you very much, Anton.
Right.
Damien and Anton are there doing that. Of course, there's this small little podcast called Game Audio Hour that does one too. Ours moved though, so we need to lock that down next time we do it. We were supposed to be at Spyglass, and it got just plastered with non-game audio people, and so we moved it to the hotel where we were staying in the lobby. And they were very accommodating. It was great, but people had to walk. That was kind of embarrassing. So we'll plan better this year. But yeah, so there's all kinds of places to meet game audio people. But more than that, the people that are going to be that you could speak to about gigs are not necessarily game audio people, and those are doing a lot of after parties, and the W's big, just all kinds of places. Just have fun. Just go in there, be yourself, relax, talk to people. That's the best way to get some future work. Just be yourself, relax, and talk.
Nice.
I guess that's the end, right, guys? You think that's the end?
Yeah, we're the Game Audio Hour.
Quick hour.
7 minutes.
What'd you say, Mike?
No, it's a Game Audio Hour in 7 minutes so far.
But we started late. We may be at like 4 minutes.
Well, time is flying because we're having fun.
It did.
Indeed.
Hey, and Daniel Kim wasn't in there when we did this. Thank you. Thank you so much. These are amazing. He's there now. I hope you're feeling better. Thank you for the ciders as well, because I don't like beer, and it was really nice to get those ciders. I do love those.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations to Ian for winning. Thank you, Isotope, for sponsoring the show. Do all the Twitter things and Facebook things and all those things I can't remember. And we'll talk to you guys later. Bye.